Ange Postecoglou is transforming Tottenham. It is only 4 games into the season, but there have already been plenty of positive signs for Spurs. Spurs sit unbeaten in second, only behind Guardiola's City, and have scored the second most goals in the league. All of this is despite having lost the Premier League's second all-time top scorer and fielding the 6th youngest 11 in the league. As we'll see, it hasn't always been smooth sailing for Big Ange, but why exactly have Spurs been so tactically interesting this season? Let's take a look. Spurs looking fluid in the face of so much overhaul is impressive, and a look at this season's most frequently used 11 shows that only 3 of these players played more than half the available minutes last season. The formation has also changed massively, as last season 89% of Spurs' league matches saw a back 3 formation, and now we have a dedicated 4-2-3-1. The style of play has also evolved greatly. Last season Spurs averaged less than 50% possession per match, only the 9th most in the league. This season that's already up to 59.1%, the 5th most in the league, while their XG per 90 this season is over 2 compared to just 1.5 last season. But enough of the numbers, what is happening on the pitch? The change begins right from the back, with Vicario beginning much shorter than Lloris, who struggles with the ball at his feet, with Vicario only going long with 20% of his goal kicks compared to Lloris's 33%. To be fair to the Frenchman, this is partly because Ange Postecoglou's system is designed to play out from the back. Spurs will tend to split their centre-backs wide, and Yves Bissouma has been fully entrusted by Postecoglou to be the deepest pivot to receive the first pass. In fact, the Malian is quickly becoming the hub of the team, being the target of a pass from his teammates most often. As teams press the goalkeeper while looking to cut off the centre-backs with their cover shadow, Bissouma is comfortable receiving under pressure to give a wall pass to the centre-back who can then advance. But he also has great match intelligence, as if his presser looks to anticipate the pass to the centre-back, he can turn on a dime, evading the press and now moving the team higher up the pitch. But teams do press well at times, covering Bissouma and looking to stop the supply. But Ange's system is solution-oriented. Rarely is Bissouma a single pivot, and the right back in Emerson, but more often Porro, are targeted to be the inverted fullback, while Sarr or Skip push higher up into the right-hand space. It should be mentioned that Porro is not the perfect inverted fullback and can be vulnerable to the press, leading to some dicey situations when teams have backed up the press well. But once again, Spurs are rather fluid and have solutions when facing consistent pressure, and the signing of James Maddison is beginning to look like a real bargain. A natural attacking midfielder, of course, when the side is under pressure, he is great at dropping deep at pace to create a temporary 3 versus 2, receive the ball, turn and advance higher up the pitch. If the opposition midfield follows deep, there are now the problems of massive gaps between the lines where Vicario could look for a chip ball into Sarr. Or if it was the winger covering Porro deeper, allowing an opposition midfielder to also remain deep on Sarr, there is still the matter of Udogie, who can be a wide outlet, or push into an inverted midfield position to still receive that chipped pass. But in open play, things get really interesting as Postecoglou looks to maintain his flexibility. Postecoglou's side have been brave on the ball, and where most teams would build with a back 3, either through dropping a defensive midfielder or tucking in a fullback, Ange has entrusted Van der Feen and Romero to build as a 2 as much as possible. And that gives him an extra man to utilize elsewhere, primarily in the midfield for the overload. And Postecoglou's use of inverted fullbacks is quite interesting, as he plays with 2 inverted fullbacks. In this previous video, we talked about the types of inverted fullbacks, and most commonly when sides are using 2 inverted fullbacks, it is usually a defensive inverter paired with a controlling inverter, which Postecoglou rarely does, or 2 controlling inverters in these zones, which he does do at times, with both Udogie and Porro alongside Bissouma in the midfield, allowing Sarr and Maddison to be higher up in the half spaces. But oftentimes he uses a rarer configuration, that is a controlling inverter with Porro becoming the second pivot, whilst Udogie moves higher up into the left-hand half space, so that at times there are temporarily 3 men behind the forward. This gives Spurs many options. It is fairly rare for opposition teams to sit both of their wingers on the inverting fullbacks, and in fact we often see either a winger or a midfielder advancing higher with the forward to try and create a 2 versus 2 in the press. But generally, if sides are looking to press both Spurs pivots deep. Firstly, as discussed, Udogie has the scope to become the third man in the midfield. But Maddison also has a lot of freedom, especially if both of the men in the half spaces are high, potentially pinning midfielders deep. And Maddison has really been thriving in this side, using his freedom to drift wide when needed, but also looking for opportunities to create for others, or if he's given too much space, he can be deadly from range. In fact, his 2.5 key passes per game are the most in the side, but at the same time he attempts more shots than anybody else in the side, making him a real threat. But the roles of Udogie and Sarr are quite interesting as they operate differently. Down the right hand side, with wingers sometimes looking to follow Porro infield as he inverts, space naturally opens up in this region. As a result, Sarr will often drop deep in this region to pick up the ball in space, and it is difficult for a midfielder to follow him due to the presence of Maddison high up, as well as Richarlison, who often now looks to drop deep. The positioning of Sarr can often free up Kulusevski to be in a 1 versus 1 situation. And if a man is drawn wide, creating room in the half space, Sarr can then make the run into that space. Or there can be a rotation with Porro darting into the half space to receive the ball for a cross, with Sarr tucking into his natural midfield position. If the pass into the half space does not materialize, the right-hand overload can still be enacted, and now there is the potential for the switch to the far side. Down the left, on occasion we see similarities, with Udogie coming deep left in a more traditional left-back role to pick up the ball. However, he tends to stay high. Where on the far side the opposition winger is happier to tuck into Porro, Udogie's position is much harder to be tracked by the winger due to being so central and deep. So often, the opposition midfield can be overloaded. And with the dangerous Son out wide often drawing the attention of the fullback, the space does often appear for Udogie to attack. And Spurs can at times then overload the box, ready for the cutback from Udogie. Or if the fullback opened up space for the cross, the winger can then look to cross it. Against Burnley, we saw a preview of Son up front, and it will be interesting to see if Postecoglou chooses to stick with this as Richarlison's struggles continue. But we've also seen problems with the Spurs system in the transitional phase. This is because both fullbacks are inverted, and although only having 2 centre-backs in possession has its advantages, on the defensive end of things it leaves them light. So we have seen many occasions where opposition have had success in hitting the areas behind the fullbacks hard on the counter-attack. But the signs are bright for Postecoglou, and although Spurs' start has had some tricky fixtures, it will be interesting to see how the system holds up as the season progresses. But I want to know in the comments where you think Postecoglou's side will finish. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be great, and feel free to check out my Patreon to get early access to new videos such as this one, and it helps to support the channel in the process.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.